I, 24 years old female, had been visiting my aunt's place for a wedding who lives a few hours away from me. She has two boys, 30-year-old, 27-year-old males, and both of them are married to two beautiful and intelligent women. I met them only recently, and I have not hung out with them a lot. I always wanted older brothers since I only have an older sister, although I acknowledge that this was not their responsibility. My aunt loves me a lot, though. I asked her if I could stay at their place for a couple days more. At night, both of my cousins were with their wives, and I was helping my aunt with the dinner. She asked me to call all of them downstairs. When I went to the room, I heard my older sister-in-law say, "Ugh, when is my name leaving?" I don't know why she is so clingy. She annoyed us throughout the wedding and meddles in our family so much. My cousins just lightly laughed along. I'm unsure if they found humor in her words or was it awkward laughter. My cousin saw me in the doorway and it looked like he had seen a ghost. I just said, "Please come downstairs, dinner's ready." He stopped me and asked me if I heard her. I just gave him a smile and said while holding back tears, "I did, but it's okay because she can have her opinion. It's okay if she doesn't like me. I did not take it into consideration that you guys are on a hectic schedule and forced myself here. I'll do better." He apologized to me on her behalf, and she apologized as well, saying she was just stressed about the busy schedule and packing, although I had been doing chores for them all day to not be dead weight. After dinner, they tried to talk to me, but I avoided them and called a friend. I talked to him, just trying to calm myself down because my feelings were really hurt and I felt unwanted. In the morning, I packed my bags early and told my aunt I'm going to visit a friend in the city. Then I have a flight late in the evening to go back home as soon as possible for work. My aunt was surprised and asked me to wait until my cousins wake up before I go, but I told her I had said my goodbyes last night already. After seeing my friend, I just went to the airport a few hours early and sat in the lounge until it was time to go. My sister and I have shared GPS locations for safety purposes, and I forgot that she can see me being at the airport a couple days earlier than planned. I told her everything. When I got off the flight, I had missed calls and texts from my aunt and my cousins. Apparently, my sister told my mom what went down, and she was too unhappy. She then called my aunt and asked her about this and found out that she was unaware of it all. My cousins had played it cool. Long story short, my aunt and my uncle are super upset with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law feels like I made an immature and rash decision and made her look bad in front of the entire family. I could have given them a chance the next day to fix things, but I threw them all under the bus. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the jerk. Your sister-in-law disrespected you. You have every right to respond by removing yourself from the situation, setting a boundary, and giving yourself some space. Your sister-in-law is now rightly facing criticism from her family for her comment, but instead of handling it responsibly, she is blaming you. Not cool. It's good that the other family members understand that what your sister-in-law said was wrong and are handling the situation better. Comment 2, not the jerk. I would have left too. There is no need for explanations. She wanted you to leave. It would have been too awkward to stay. There is nothing that could have fixed or clarified the situation. She wanted you gone, but probably didn't want to hurt your feelings. Oh well, I would still move on and be polite and gracious with them in the future, which you were, but staying would have been too much. Now for the update, thanks for reading my last post. So it's been a month since all that happened, and things have only gotten more complicated. After I got back home, I tried to move on and focus on my work, but the whole situation kept gnawing at me. My aunt called me a few times, trying to patch things up, but I was still hurt and didn't really want to talk about it. My mom, on the other hand, was furious and kept bringing it up every chance she got. She even suggested that I should cut ties with my cousins and their wives, which I thought was a bit extreme. A couple of weeks ago, my aunt invited me to a family gathering, saying it would be a good opportunity to clear the air. I was hesitant but decided to go, thinking maybe it would help mend things. When I got there, the atmosphere was tense. My sister-in-law barely looked at me, and my cousins seemed awkward. My aunt tried to keep things light, but it was obvious everyone was walking on eggshells. During dinner, my younger cousin's wife, who had been quiet the whole time, suddenly spoke up. She said she felt bad about what happened and wanted to apologize on behalf of everyone. It was a nice gesture, but it felt forced. My older sister-in-law just sat there looking annoyed. I thanked her, but didn't say much else. After dinner, my aunt pulled me aside and asked if I could stay a bit longer to talk things out with my sister-in-law. I agreed, thinking it might help. We went to the living room and my aunt left us alone. My sister-in-law started by saying she was sorry for what she said, but then she added that she felt I overreacted by leaving so abruptly and causing a family rift. That really stung. I tried to explain how hurt I was, but she kept insisting that I should have given them a chance to make things right the next day. At that point, I lost my temper. I told her that her apology didn't feel genuine and that she was just trying to save face. She got defensive and said I was being overly sensitive. We ended up having a heated argument, and my aunt had to step in to calm us down. I left shortly after, feeling even worse than before. The next day, I got a call from my mom. She had heard about the argument and was even more upset. She said I should have just accepted the apology and moved on, but I couldn't help feeling that my sister-in-law didn't really mean it. My mom then dropped a bombshell. She had decided to confront my aunt about the whole situation and demand an apology from my sister-in-law. I begged her not to, but she was adamant. A few days later, my mom called me again, saying she had spoken to my aunt. Apparently, the conversation didn't go well. My aunt was defensive and said that I was the one causing drama by not letting things go. My mom and my aunt ended up having a huge argument, and now they're not speaking to each other. This has caused a lot of tension in the family, and everyone is taking sides. To make matters worse, my sister-in-law found out about the confrontation and is now even more upset with me. She sent me a long text, accusing me of trying to ruin her marriage and saying that I was the one who needed to apologize. I didn't know how to respond, so I just ignored it. In the midst of all this, I started to question whether I had made a mistake by leaving so abruptly that morning. Maybe I should have stayed and tried to work things out, but then I remember how hurt I was and how my sister-in-law's words made me feel like an outsider. It's hard to know what the right thing to do is. Last week, my older cousin called me. He said he wanted to talk and try to clear the air. We met up for coffee and he apologized for everything that happened. He said he felt caught in the middle and didn't know how to handle the situation. I appreciated his honesty, but it didn't change the fact that things were still tense between me and his wife. As we talked, he mentioned something that really struck me. He said that his wife had always felt a bit insecure around me because she thought I was trying to take her place in the family. I was shocked. I never intended to make her feel that way. I just wanted to be close to my cousins and feel like part of the family. This revelation made me realize that there were deeper issues at play, and it wasn't just about that one comment. But before I could process this new information, my cousin dropped another news. He said that his wife had been talking about moving out of state to get away from the family drama. This was a huge deal because it meant that my actions had far-reaching consequences that I hadn't even considered. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. Maybe I had been too focused on my own feelings and hadn't thought about how my actions would affect everyone else. As I left the coffee shop, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a huge mistake. I had let my emotions get the best of me and had caused a rift in the family that might never heal. I didn't know how to fix it, and I felt overwhelmed by the weight of it all. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for telling my insensitive sister-in-law to back off at her baby's sip? See my wife's sister Jen, 33 years old, and her husband Matt, 35 years old, welcomed their first child about 4 months ago. Jen didn't want a baby shower but decided on doing a sip and see for close relatives to meet the baby. This happened last Saturday. My wife has met the baby before this, but it was my first time seeing them since the birth. About 2 months ago, my dad passed away unexpectedly in his sleep. It's been a really difficult time for me, but I'm in therapy and on antidepressants, both of which are helping. I wasn't really looking forward to attending the sip and see, but it meant a lot to my wife that I come with her, and she kind of pressured me to come since I hadn't seen the baby yet. The event was just close family, about 15 of us total, and very informal. About an hour into the event, Jen asked me if I wanted to hold the baby. I told her I didn't really want to, but she pretty much shoved the baby into my arms. She then sat next to me and told me that she was sorry about my dad and that they regretted not being able to attend the funeral because of the baby. I thanked her and told her not to worry about the funeral, I understand. She then went on this weird tangent about a new life springing from death and renewal of energy. I had no idea what she was talking about and just kind of nodded along. Then she said that she hopes seeing and holding a beautiful baby will help me get over my loss. It was a weird comment, and I looked at her and told her, "No, this is not helping me get over the death of my dad." She got defensive and told me that it was supposed to be a joyous day to celebrate a new life, and that I should be happy and not dwell on my dad's death. I didn't want to cause a scene in front of everyone, but I was pissed. I handed Jen her baby back and leaned in close to her and whispered, "Go flash circumflex. Percent yourself, Jen." I then got up and walked over to my wife and told her that I needed to leave. I told her she can stay if she wants, but I need to get out of there ASAP. She asked me why, and I told her I would talk to her about it on the drive home or later if she wants to stick around. By that time, Jen had gotten up and was on a warpath. She came up to me, still holding the baby, and poked her finger at me, telling me I have no right to talk to her like that. That got everyone's attention, and now everyone was looking at us. Matt came over to ask what was going on. My wife was confused. Jen was basically yelling. The baby was starting to cry. It was a mess. I told my wife I need to leave and she needs to make a decision right then. She ended up coming home with me. I explained what happened on the drive home, and she said she understood why I was upset by Jen's comments and agreed she was out of line. But I shouldn't have said that to her. Now for an update. My wife has been getting a lot of grief from Jen and her parents, basically calling me the biggest jerk they've ever met. I don't even know if an apology will help. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You overreacted. Your sister-in-law's remarks went off the rails and you lost control. I don't think you should apologize. Sister-in-law should be willing to accept that she struck the wrong nerve with her over-solicitous comments about death, etc. Her baby is not some vehicle of healing. She's just one of those mothers who can't think beyond her own pride of being a mother. Not the idiot. If sister-in-law and in-laws want to make this a forever conflict, not your problem. They should have the maturity to realize that sister-in-law just went too far. Comment 2. Soft everyone sucks here. Completely out of line for anyone to tell someone unsolicited how long they should grieve a loss or what they should do to get over it. Totally valid to be frustrated and even angry about that. However, while I understand your frustration, telling her to F herself wasn't an appropriate response. You could have removed yourself without having said that. All that said, I am genuinely sorry for your loss and hope you're able to grieve and heal in whatever way you're able. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all this. So after that whole mess at the Sip and See, things have only gotten more complicated. The day after the event, my wife and I were still pretty tense. We didn't talk much that night, but the next morning, she sat me down and said we needed to figure out how to handle the fallout. She was getting nonstop texts from Jen and her parents, and it was stressing her out. I felt bad for putting her in that position, but I was still angry about what Jen had said. We decided that I should try to apologize to Jen, even if I didn't really feel like it. I texted her asking if we could talk, and she agreed to meet up at a coffee shop. When I got there, she was already sitting at a table, looking pretty pissed. I sat down and started to apologize, but she cut me off, saying that my apology didn't mean anything if I didn't understand why she was upset. She went on about how I ruined her special day and how I was selfish for making it all about me. I tried to explain that her comments about my dad were hurtful, but she just rolled her eyes and said I was being too sensitive. At that point, I realized that this conversation wasn't going anywhere. I told her I was sorry for what I said, but I couldn't change how I felt. She just shook her head and said she didn't think she could ever forgive me. I left the coffee shop feeling even worse than before. When I got home, my wife could tell things hadn't gone well. She hugged me and said she was sorry it didn't work out, but she was still getting pressure from her family to make things right. I felt stuck. I didn't know how to fix this, and it was starting to affect my relationship with my wife. We were arguing more, and I could tell she was torn between supporting me and keeping the peace with her family. 2 days later, things took an unexpected turn. My wife got a call from her mom who said that Jen and Matt had decided to take a break from each other. Apparently, the stress from the Sip and See and the ongoing family drama had put a strain on their relationship. My wife was shocked and upset, and she blamed me for adding to their problems. I felt terrible, but I didn't know what to do. I never intended for any of this to happen. That night, my wife and I had a long talk. She told me that she loved me and wanted to support me, but she was worried about her family falling apart. She asked me if there was anything else I could do to make things right. I felt like I had already tried everything, but I didn't want to lose her, so I agreed to try talking to Jen again. This time, I decided to write Jen a letter. I poured my heart into it, explaining how much my dad's death had affected me and how her comments had hurt me. I also apologized again for what I said and told her that I never meant to ruin her special day. I asked her to please consider forgiving me for the sake of our families. A few days later, I got a response from Jen. She said she appreciated the letter and could see that I was genuinely sorry. She admitted that she might have been a bit insensitive with her comments, but she was still hurt by what I said. She said she needed more time to process everything, but she was willing to try to move forward for the sake of our families. In the meantime, my wife and I decided to take a short trip to clear our heads and get away from all the drama. We went to a cabin in the mountains for a few days, and it was exactly what we needed. We spent time hiking, talking, and just being together without any distractions. It helped us reconnect and reminded us why we fell in love in the first place. When we got back, things were still tense with Jen and her parents, but at least we had a plan. My wife and I agreed to take things one step at a time and focus on our relationship first. We also decided to start couples therapy to help us navigate this difficult time. As for Jen and Matt, they decided to go to counseling to work on their issues. I don't know if they will be able to fix things, but I hope they can find a way to be happy, whether that's together or apart. Looking back, I realized that I made a mistake by letting my anger get the best of me. I should have handled things differently, but I can't change the past. All I can do is try to learn from this experience and be a better person moving forward. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to give up my inheritance to my sister and her kids? My mother, who was 63 years old, passed away a couple of months ago following a sudden and unexpected cardiac arrest. She owned a very nice home outright and had a fairly significant amount of savings, as both she and my father's retirement savings were in her bank account. My father died 8 years ago at the age of 59 from cancer. My sister, Megan, who is 34 years old, is a single mother to 2 sons aged 7 and 5, both of whom have autism, with the youngest being profoundly autistic and will require round-the-clock care for life. She doesn't work and is reliant on carer payments from the government and child support. Her now ex-husband divorced her because he couldn't deal with his sons, moved to another country, dual citizen, where it's hard for the government to get child support because their government is difficult to work with. My mother's will divided her jewelry equally between us and stated that the rest of her estate should be split equally between us. Megan is pressuring me into just taking the jewelry left to me and letting her have both the house and the money because I need it more because of the boys. You're fine and can work. I want my share and said I won't be giving it up. I'm childless and don't plan to have children. I work in legal for a nonprofit, and while I am far from balling in this economy, I'm able to pay my bills without financial stress. My fiance is foreign-born. I met her overseas at a concert in early 2018, and we've been going back and forth as much as we can ever since. Remote work helps a lot, and we are in the process of securing her permanent residency on a partner visa here, which is an expensive and time-consuming process. Receiving my share will wipe out what's left of my student debt, allow me to take time off work to get her visa sorted faster, and buy us a small but still nice house outright so we can live without the stress of a mortgage. Not having a mortgage will afford us the ability to live comfortably, but not extravagantly, take a holiday every year, and be free of financial stress. It will also pay for a small but nice wedding and to fly her parents and sister out for it. Megan is furious, saying it's selfish and I can always get a better job if I want a better life, and at least I can work and that I need to have sympathy for her situation. I don't want to give up work I am passionate about, and that gives me good work-life balance to go work 14-hour days in Big Law downtown to service a mortgage. I also feel like, as harsh as it sounds, I shouldn't have to sacrifice for her choices. My fiance and I have chosen not to have kids, and while I know she didn't choose to have a disabled son, she did choose to gamble on parenthood. Her kids were both planned, and it's not my fault she lost by having a disabled kid and ending up a single mother. I am legally entitled to it, and she can't do anything to try and get it. But she's told a few people, and a lot of them say I'm being selfish and should give up my share. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Would it be nice of you to give her more? Sure, but you aren't a jerk for not doing so. If your mom wanted her to have more because of her kids, she would have written it in her will. Besides, there's no guarantee that you won't have need for it in the future. If you did give it to her, and next year you suddenly couldn't work, I don't think she would give it back. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She basically wants her sibling to do more for her children than their father was willing to do. Tell the flying monkeys that the topic is not up for discussion, and if they feel so passionately about it, then they can open up their own wallets for your sister. I understand that she is caught between a rock and a hard place, but you did not put her there. Now for the update, thanks for all the comments from my last post. So here's what happened over the past 3 days. After my last update, Megan and I had another heated argument. This time it was over the phone. She was crying and saying that I was ruining her life and the lives of her boys. I tried to stay calm and explain my side again, but she wasn't having it. She hung up on me, and I felt a mix of anger and guilt. I knew I was entitled to my share, but hearing her so upset made me second-guess myself. The next day I got a call from our family lawyer. He said Megan had contacted him, trying to find a way to contest the will. He assured me that the will was solid and that there was no legal ground for her to stand on. Still, it was stressful to hear that she was taking things to this level. I decided to take a day off work to clear my head and think about my next steps. That evening, I talked to my fiancée about everything. She was supportive, but also worried about the toll this was taking on me. We discussed the possibility of offering Megan a larger share of the money, but not the house. It seemed like a fair compromise, and I hoped it would ease some of the tension. I called Megan to propose this idea, but she rejected it outright. She wanted everything or nothing. Feeling frustrated, I decided to visit the house the next day to start sorting through my mother's belongings. I thought it might help me feel closer to her and give me some clarity. When I arrived, I found Megan already there, packing up things as if she had already won. We had another argument, and this time it got really ugly. She accused me of being heartless and said I didn't care about family. I left the house feeling more conflicted than ever. Later that night, I received a text from one of our mutual friends. She said Megan had been telling people that I was trying to kick her and the boys out on the street. This wasn't true, but it made me realize how far Megan was willing to go to get what she wanted. I felt betrayed and hurt. I decided to consult with the lawyer again to see if there was any way to expedite the process and get my share settled quickly. The lawyer suggested that we could sell the house and split the proceeds, but Megan would need to agree to it. I knew she wouldn't, but I decided to bring it up anyway. When I called her, she was surprisingly calm. She said she would think about it and let me know. I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe we could find a resolution. The next day, I got a call from Megan. She said she had thought about it and was willing to sell the house, but only if I gave her 70% of the proceeds. I was shocked. It was a ridiculous demand, and I told her so. She started crying again, saying she was desperate and didn't know what else to do. I felt a pang of sympathy, but stood my ground. I told her I couldn't agree to that and that we needed to find a fair solution. That evening, I received an email from the lawyer. He had drafted a proposal for us to review. It suggested a 60-40 split in Megan's favor, considering her situation. I wasn't thrilled about it, but it seemed like a reasonable compromise. I forwarded it to Megan and waited for her response. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of angry texts from Megan. She was furious about the proposal and accused me of trying to cheat her. She said she would never agree to anything less than 100% of the house and money. I felt defeated. It seemed like no matter what I did, it was never going to be enough for her. In the midst of all this, I made a mistake that changed everything. I decided to take a break from the drama and went out with some friends to clear my head. I had a few drinks and ended up venting about the situation. I didn't realize one of my friends was recording the conversation. The next day, the recording somehow made its way to Megan. In it, I had said some harsh things about her and her situation. I was venting and didn't mean half of what I said, but it was too late. Megan called me livid. She said she was done trying to negotiate and that she would see me in court. I tried to apologize and explain, but she wouldn't listen. She hung up, and I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. I knew I had messed up big time. The fallout was immediate. Our mutual friends started taking sides, and I found myself increasingly isolated. My fiancé was supportive, but also stressed about the whole situation. The legal process dragged on, and the tension between Megan and me only grew worse. I started to regret not finding a way to resolve things sooner. In the end, the court ruled in my favor, but it was a hollow victory. Megan and I were no longer on speaking terms, and the family was fractured beyond repair. The house was sold and I got my share, but it didn't bring the relief I had hoped for. Instead, it felt like a Pyrrhic victory, one that came at too high a cost. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.